Good morning. Today I will be reading chapter 5 of my subject Science, Technology, and Society for my college students. The title is Human Flourishing as Reflected in Progress and Development. So here we go. Learning outcomes. At the end of this chapter, the students should be able to 1. Critique human flourishing vis-a-vis the progress of science and technology. Number 2. Explain Haeckel's paradigm of de-development and differentiate it from the traditional notions of growth and consumption. I have read the introduction already, so I'll give you a view of forget developing poor countries, it's time to de-develop rich countries by Jason Haeckel. Heads of state are gathering in New York to sign the UN's new Sustainable Development Goals, or SGDs. The main objective is to eradicate poverty by 2030. Today is 2022 March. Beyonce, One Direction, and Malala are on board. It's set to be a monumental international celebration. Given all the fanfare, one might think the SDGs are about to offer a fresh plan for how to save the world, but beneath all the hype, it's business as usual. The main strategy for eradicating poverty is the same: growth. Growth has been the main objective of development for the past 70 years, despite the fact that it is not working. Since 1980, the global economy has grown by 380%, but the number of people living in poverty or on less than $5 a day has increased by more than 1.1 billion. That's 17 times the population of Britain. So much for the trickle-down effect. Orthodox economists insist that all we need is yet more growth. More progressive types tell us that we need to shift some of the yields of growth from the richer segments of the population to the poorer ones, evening things out a bit. Evening. Neither approach is adequate. Why? Because even at current levels of average global consumption, we're overshooting our planet's biocapacity by more than 50% each year. In other words, growth isn't an option anymore. We've already grown too much. Scientists are now telling us that we're blowing past planetary boundaries at breakneck speed. And the hard truth is that the global crisis is due almost entirely to overconsumption in rich countries. Right now, our planet only has enough resources for each of us to consume 1.8 global hectares annually, a standardized unit that measures resource use and waste. This figure is roughly what an average person in Ghana or Guatemala consumes. By contrast, people in the US and Canada consume about 8 hectares per person, while Europeans consume 4.7 hectares, many times their fair share, as compared to the 1.8 global hectares annually as a standardized measure. What does this mean for our theory of development? Economist Peter Edward argues that instead of pushing poorer countries to catch up with rich ones, we should be thinking of ways to get rich countries to catch down to more appropriate levels of development. We should look at societies where people live long and happy lives at relatively low levels of income and consumption, not as basket cases that need to be developed towards Western models, but as exemplars of efficient living. How much do we really need to live long and happy lives? In the US, life expectancy is 79 years and GDP per capita is $53,000. But many countries have achieved similar life expectancy with a mere fraction of this income. Cuba has a comparable life expectancy to the US and one of the highest literacy rates in the world, with GDP per capita of only $6,000 and consumption of only 1.9 hectares, right at the threshold of ecological sustainability. Similar claims can be made of Peru, Ecuador, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Tunisia. What does that mean? So it means your consumption level can just be below than the rich countries' level of consumption, but still you can have this quality life, which is described as long and happy. Yes, some of the excess income and consumption we see in the rich world yields improvements in quality of life that are not captured by life expectancy or even literacy rates. But even if we look at measures of overall happiness and well-being in addition to life expectancy, a number of low and middle income countries rank highly. Costa Rica manages to sustain one of the highest happiness indicators and life expectancies in the world with a per capita income one-fourth that of the US. In light of this, perhaps we should regard such countries not as underdeveloped, but rather as appropriately developed. And maybe we need to start calling on rich countries to justify their excesses. The idea of de-developing rich countries might prove to be a strong rallying cry in the global south, but it will be tricky to sell to Westerners. Tricky, but not impossible. According to recent consumer research, 70% of people in middle and high income countries believe overconsumption is putting our planet and society at risk. A similar majority is also believe should strive to buy and own less, and that doing so would compromise our happiness. People sense there is something wrong with the dominant model of economic progress and they are hungry for an alternative narrative. The problem is that the pundits promoting this kind of transition are using the wrong language. They use terms such as degrowth, zero growth, or worst of all, de-development, which are technically accurate but off-putting for anyone who's not already on board. Such terms are repulsive because they run against the deepest frames we used to think about human progress and indeed the purpose of life itself. It's like asking people to stop moving positively through life, to stop learning, improving, growing. Yeah. So class, please continue reading. We just have a fourth of a page and another page which is not too congested with words. So that's page 66, the last page to read. And then try to give a reaction on this article. Maybe you can search for some proofs about the information given by Heikel. There's the source here, Heikel J 2015, forget developing poor countries, it's time to de-develop rich countries, The Guardian. Okay, so there is already a source here where you can find it in the internet. Thank you so much. Stay safe. Bye.